the Princeton professor of economics who just won a Nobel Prize, wrote a column in 2006 as the subprime mortgage crisis started to emerge. He said, if anyone is to blame for the current situation, is Mr. Greenspan, who poo-pooed warnings about an emerging bubble and did nothing to crack down on irresponsible lending, end quote. He obviously believes you deserve some of the blame for our current conditions. I'd like your perspective. Do you have any personal responsibility for the financial crisis?
Well, let me give you a little history, Mr. Chairman. There's been a considerable amount of discussion about my views on subprime markets in the year 2000. And indeed, one of our most distinguished governors at the time, Governor Gramlich, who frankly is regrettably deceased, but was unquestionably one of the best governors I ever had to deal with, came to my office and said that he was having difficulties with the problem of what really turned out to be fairly major problems in predatory lending.
Well, he urged you to move with the power that you had as the chairman of the Fed, as both the Treasury Department and HUD suggested, that you put in place regulations that would curb these emerging abuses in subprime lending, but you didn't listen to the Treasury Department or Mr. Gramlich. Do you think that was a mistake on your part?
Well, I question the facts of that. He and I had a conversation. I said to him, I have my doubts as to whether it would be successful, but to understand the process by which decisions are made at the Fed, it's important to recognize what our lines of responsibility and lines of authority are within the structure of the system. The Fed has an incredibly professional, large division that covers consumer and community affairs. It's got probably the best banking lawyers in the business in the legal department, and an outside council of expert professionals to advise on regulatory matters. And what the system actually did was to try to corral all of this ongoing information and to eventually filter it into a subcommittee of the Federal Reserve Board.
Dr. Greenspan, I'm going to interrupt you. Just the question I have for you is, you had an ideology, you had a belief that that free, competitive, and this is your statement, I do have an ideology. My judgment is that free, competitive markets are by far the unrivaled way to organize economies. We've tried regulation, none meaningfully worked. That was your quote. You had the authority to prevent irresponsible lending practices that led to the subprime mortgage crisis. You were advised to do so by many others, and now our whole economy is paying its price. Do you feel that your ideology pushed you to make decisions that you wish you had not made?
Well, remember that what an ideology is a conceptual framework with the way people deal with reality. Everyone has one. You have to exist, you need an ideology. The question is whether it is accurate or not. And what I'm saying to you is, yes, I found a flaw. I don't know how significant or permanent it is, but I've been very dissatisfied. May I just finish an answer to the question previously?
You found a flaw in the reality.
A flaw in the model that I perceived is the critical functioning structure that defines how the world works, so to speak.
In other words, you found that your view of the world, your ideology, was not right. It was not working.
Precisely. No, that's precisely the reason I was shocked, because I've been going for 40 years or more with very considerable evidence that it was working exceptionally well. But just let me, if I may.
Well, but the problem is that the time has already expired, and there, as you can see,
he wanted to answer, Mr. You just let him answer.
If you're very briefly, because we have many members.
The reason basically is this, that Governor Gramlich said to me that he had problems. Indeed, I agreed that I had heard very much the same thing. I frankly thought that when our meeting ended, that the subcommittee of the board, which supervises all of the various aspects of consumer and community affairs within the Board of Governors and the Federal Reserve System, would move forward and present to the board as a whole recommendations to be made. That was not made, and I presumed at the time that essentially the subcommittee didn't think it rose to the higher level. But just quickly to say that the overall view that I take of regulation is that I took a pledge when I took an oath of office when I became Federal Reserve Chairman. And I recognize that you do with that, what I did is I said that I'm hold the laws of the land passed by the Congress, not my own predilections. And I think you will find that my history is that I voted for virtually every regulatory action that the Federal Reserve Board moved forward on. Indeed, I voted with the majority at all times, and I was doing so because I perceived that that was the will of the Congress. And in fact, if you go back and look at the record, I felt required by my oath of office to adhere to what I'm supposed to do, not what I'd like to do. And that is my history, and I think the evidence very strongly supports that.
Well, I appreciate that. On the other hand, you didn't get to vote on regulations that you didn't put before the Federal Reserve Board, even though you had the legal authority for those regulations. That's more not a question but a comment.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Davis?
Never mind. I'll yield a minute to my, you want to ask one?
No, I was just going to